Are you ready to start creating your ideal week, especially as an entrepreneur or a business owner? In this video, I'm going to walk you through how to hopefully be able to get a little bit of control in your day-to-day schedule, especially if you're just starting out your business or you've been doing it for 5 years like I have, and how to be able to have some feeling of like, hey, I'm moving myself forward. I'm not just being mandated by my meetings or the things that I need to do in my business. I'm actually in control, or at least putting in a little bit of flexibility in my schedule as well. And this is coming from someone who runs a virtual assistant agency and also has an AI consulting agency. So running two businesses, I have a lot of things to keep in mind, a lot of things to make sure that I am making space basically for potential clients or clients who are working with. And as someone who's also a digital nomad, so I travel a lot. I do have a base basically here in Cebu, Philippines. However, I go to Manila. I'm going to Siargao in a few weeks. I just went through Europe basically. So how I've been planning and plotting this out, I'm going to walk you guys through how to do it. Now, the first one is start creating your ideal life. And what this means is if you had the wherewithal, if you had the resources, the time, if you have anything that you need in the world, what will that life look like? Now, for me, when I did this exercise about 2 years ago and haven't felt the need to update it so far, I had this vision where I was running multiple businesses, which I now have two, so that technically falls under multiple businesses. And I was able to travel somewhere at least once a quarter. I didn't want to do month to month. I did that in about 2019 and a little bit of 2022, basically once the restrictions were more loose. But I kind of stuck with the idea about 2 years ago of doing it at least quarterly, where I have a big trip planned where I'm out for about 2 weeks to maybe a month, depending on how I set things up for myself. So then I have this refresher or break in between the quarters, as well as a way for me to test out if the systems within our business are, can run basically without me. So that's my ideal life. So I went from the zoomed out version of how I want the ideal life to look like, so then I can zoom in on my ideal week. So you can write that down, you can visualize it for yourself, whatever it is. The important thing is you have at least in your head, you know what success looks like for setting up your ideal week, so it can become your ideal month, quarter, year, and of course your life. So that's kind of where we're coming from. And this is an exercise that you can definitely do maybe like every 3 or 2 years. So then you are always kind of not setting yourself up to want something that you didn't really want anymore just because you've already went through it. And I've gone through that before as well. Basically, just make sure that it's relevant to you and the life that you want to live. Next is you want to go ahead and reflect on your last month. So we went from vision to what actually has happened to you. So just the past. So looking at your schedule, looking at the things you're able to get done. It's basically going through what are the patterns that you see that happens basically on like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Fridays. What are the key meetings that you feel moved a lot of things forward? And what are the things that kind of dragged on and didn't really feel right to you? So you want to look at that so then you have some data as you start plotting out your ideal week. Next is, as we now are going to plot your ideal week, we're going to have 4 key things that people usually don't think about when it comes to plotting their week. And this is coming from my fantastic business consultant, Dan McPherson, where he talks about making sure that you put life in your calendar. So you don't, forget about life when you're working, especially again, when you're working 16-hour days when you're an entrepreneur. There are days like that where I still have to do that. So you're basically guarding your life to make sure that it doesn't get run over by your business. First thing is making sure you have your habits on your calendar. So you're plotting this out before we put in like theme days or what you want to do on certain days. Is make sure that on your calendar you have your meal times. And this is coming from someone who used to forget to eat sometimes. It was really, really bad. 2 is you want to put in your workout time. So like when do you want to work out to move your body, especially if you work from home. Even just a 30-minute walk, and I even have that on my calendar. That's my minimum. If I can't work out at all, if I don't have an hour or 45 minutes to work out, what's a 30-minute walk that I can do, literally just walking around the block just to get myself or my body moving. Then you want to put in your family time. Now for me, I don't have a family just yet. I am about to get married, but I do have people I treat as my family, I think of as family. And I have my sister also living nearby. So for me, what I've done is on my calendar, I have recurring invites to block out time with people that I love and I want to spend time with the most. So whether that's me co-working with them in a coffee shop, so I'm still working, but I'm spending time with them. It's either having breakfast or going through the farmer's market, whatever that looks like, it's plotted out on my calendar. So then I know not to miss this. I also have my date nights with my fiance on there. So again, it's making sure that my life is actually in my calendar. Next is your study time. Now, your study time is essentially when you want to go through courses that you bought. I'm also a course goblin of like, I buy and hoard courses on the side. So I have to put in time basically of when I want to go through them, especially when it comes to AI and everything else everyone's putting out. And also for studying when it comes to reading a lot of books. And I'm a huge bookworm. I have, I think, close to like 700 physical copies of books in my own place, as well on my Kindle. So I want to make sure that I put in time to study, to further myself as an entrepreneur. So I have that in my calendar as well. I have that either as a once a week thing when I know my week is going to be busy ahead, or I might have it as 30 minutes before I go to sleep or the first thing in the morning, again, depending on the flow for the week. So the importance is that you have that on there. And a key thing that my mentor said is if you're going to move that or if you're going to remove it, make sure it stays on the calendar. So you're not deleting it altogether, you're just moving it somewhere. Or if you're adding something to your calendar, make sure that you delete something else. So you're not just piling on more and more meetings for yourself. And of course, making sure that you have your focus time on there. If you're working on certain projects with other people or with yourself, making sure that you have time buffered in on focus time. Now, if you're doing this for the first time and you're used to having your days be back to back and having a lot of meetings, it can get uncomfortable because you're like, oh, no, I'm still, for example, for me in 2XU, I'm still the one doing a lot of the sales calls because it's very customized per client. So how do I make sure that people can book calls with me? Now, the key thing, and this is why we reviewed your last month, is you also want to check on of like, okay, for me, for example, Mondays are my check-in days with all of my team. So on my meetings on Monday, it's basically checking in with our client success manager, our operations head is checking with our marketing team, and we have an all hands admin meeting that day as well. And usually Tuesdays and Thursdays are reserved for those sales calls. There's kind of just open for anyone to book a call, to be able to check in with me. And I also have an afternoon meeting with my co-founder during Tuesdays because that was my schedule, the one that we've had basically for the last, I think, 6 years. So we've always had that meeting on Tuesday that afternoon. And on Friday is usually kind of a wrap-up day of like any other projects or tasks I was supposed to get done or I haven't been able to move forward. I go through on Friday, and then we have an all hands meeting for the rest of the team. Now, that's kind of how I've scheduled my days. And that process is essentially going through and creating your theme days of what makes sense based on your schedule and your goals, what makes sense for you to basically bridge those two to put things into kind of the same day. And it also helps your brain a little bit because you're not context switching a lot of like, hey, on Monday I have 3 admin meetings and Tuesday I have 3, Thursday, blah, 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 whatever that looks like for you. You at least have it in the same day. So yes, at the end of the day, you're probably tired for that portion of your brain, but at least you were able to get a lot of things done. You're not waiting a lot of people because your meetings are all on the same day for that certain project or for that certain kind of, again, theme of a day. The key thing for me, for example, is I know Tuesday and Wednesdays are my content days when I'm recording a lot of these videos for you guys. And that's just an automatic thing. It doesn't get steamrolled by other meetings. It gets done, especially since my amazing editor does need time ahead to be able to edit and make sure that the videos come out right. So that's a key thing to put in your calendar. If it needs to get done, it has to be in your calendar or else it will never get done. Next is, as you're implementing it, go ahead and test it. See what actually feels like in a week. Like for example, for me, when I started doing this, it wasn't clear that Tuesdays and Thursdays were my sales calls days. I still had slots for the rest of my week, and that was okay for me. Like, okay, I can have certain days on Mondays or Fridays that I can take on some sales calls, but it's only a slotted time, basically either at the end of my day, basically, or the beginning of my day, because the rest of that was usually already filled up with other meetings and priorities that I put on for that theme day. So implement, test, see what works, see what makes sense for you in your business. No 2 calendars are ever going to be the same. Just make it your own and make it make sense. So then it's easier for you to do the next step, which is to delegate and lead. Now, my assistant has been in charge of my calendar forever, basically. Anytime that I need something moved or she sees that something needs to get moved, she automatically knows how to do it. So things like my checkup, for example, like annual checkups for my own health, for anything else in my life as well. She already knows how recurring those are. If I have a doctor's appointment or I'm traveling somewhere, she knows to move them, to move things around, even without me instructing her to do so. So that's what I mean with delegating now on the lead side. is to making sure that you do what you say. So it's making sure that when you need to follow up someone, you follow up on someone. When you say that, hey, when we want to go ahead and schedule this meeting, you actually make it happen. So it's leading by example of like, hey, I'm fulfilling my ideal week. You don't want to be the boss where people say like, oh, my boss works 16 hours a week, I should work 16 hours a week. You want to be the leader of showing how to be able to have a life while you run your business. And I know better than most people. It's easier said than done, but it is possible. And you'll have phases and different eras in your life where it's easier to do or not. The important thing is the intention to be able to do it. And lastly, as I said, just adjust as needed. It doesn't have to be set in stone. It doesn't have to be something that you do for the rest of your life. The point of this is you kind of make it the intention to control or at least take lead of your days. So it doesn't have to be this void that you don't know what's happening, that you're kind of just in response mode where you're just like going through the motions. You're actually being intentional about how your days and your weeks and your months look like. Now, if you guys like this video, make sure to hit the thumbs up button right there. Comment below, what does your ideal week look like? I would love to know. And if you still haven't yet, make sure to hit the subscribe button right there so you don't miss any of my videos every Sunday and Thursday on how to work from home and how to have a business from home, which you guys can check out those two playlists right here and the latest video right here. I hope you guys have an amazing day, and remember that small steps matters, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!